All right, let's dive into one of the most interesting parts of JavaScript. It's automatic type conversion. It's one of those things that can make you scratch your head whether you're just starting out or you've been coding for years. But don't worry, by the end of this, we're going to make sense of it all.
Okay, right off the bat, I've got a puzzle for you. Take a look at these two lines of code. They look almost the same, right? But trust me, in JavaScript, they give you completely different answers. So take a quick guess. What do you think is going to happen with each one? Let's figure this out together.
So, here's our game plan for cracking this case. We'll start with the puzzle itself, then go over the basics that we all know. Then, we'll get into the fun part, what happens when different types collide. I'm going to share the one simple rule that explains everything, and then we'll wrap up by talking about why clear code always beats clever code.
All right, first up, the JavaScript puzzle. The big question is, why? Why do these two operations, which look so alike, end up so different? It's not random, I promise. There's a logic to it, and we're about to uncover it.
Okay, next up, let's talk about the simple stuff. Before we get into the weirdness, let's just quickly set the stage with the ground rules we're all familiar with.
Look, when things are simple, they're, well, simple, right? If you add two numbers, you get their sum. That makes sense. And if you add two strings, they just get stuck together. We call that concatenation. It's totally predictable because the types are the same. No surprises here.
And now, this is where things get interesting. What happens when you try to mix and match? When you try to add a string to a number? This is where JavaScript's automatic conversion engine fires up and the real mystery begins.
Okay, let's look at that first line of code again. We have a string, the number 1, and then we're adding two actual numbers to it. What do you think JavaScript is going to do with this?
And the answer is 122. Not 5, not 14. What happened? Well, JavaScript saw that the very first thing in the line was a string. And it basically said, okay, I guess we're doing strings now. So it converted both of those twos into strings and just glued everything together.
So what about the second one? This time, the string is at the end. We start with numbers, 1 plus 2, and then we hit the string 2. You think the order makes the difference?
Oh yeah, it absolutely does. The output here is 32. See, JavaScript goes from left to right. It saw 1 plus 2 first, did the math, and got the number 3. Then it saw the string 2. At that point, it said, okay, now I have to switch to strings, so it turned the 3 into a string and stuck the 2 on the end.
You see, it's not just random chaos. There's a consistent rule hiding behind all this apparent magic. So let's unlock the logic once and for all.
And here it is, the one rule you need to know. If the operation starts with a string, the whole thing becomes a string operation. But if it starts with numbers, JavaScript will do the math until it bumps into a string. That's it. That's the secret.
Okay, so now that we've solved the mystery, let's talk about why you should probably never rely on this stuff. It can be really tempting to use these little quirks to write what feels like clever code, but in the professional world, this is a huge trap.
And it's not just that one example. Look at this other tricky stuff. Using a plus sign to turn true into a 1, or an empty string into a 0, or chaining a bunch of assignments together. Sure, it works, but the next person who has to read your code now has to stop and solve a puzzle.
And let's be blunt about it. This is the real-world consequence. In any serious tech company, your code gets reviewed by your teammates. And if you submit something that's confusing or relies on these weird little tricks, they're going to send it right back to you. It's not getting merged.
And here's why. It's because code is read way more often than it's written. Your job isn't to prove you know every obscure corner of the language. Your job is to write code that's so clear that your team can understand it in a heartbeat. Readability is king.
Which brings us to the final and honestly the most important part of all of this. We need to write code for other human beings, not just for the machine. Clarity should always be your number one priority.
I mean, just look at this. The code on the left? Yeah, it works. But you're forcing the next person to remember the exact order of operations. The code on the right, using parentheses, there are no questions. You know exactly what the intention was. It's clean, it's clear. So here's the bottom line. The goal isn't to memorize every single weird quirk of JavaScript. The goal is to become a developer who recognizes these things as potential problems and chooses to write code that is so clear and explicit that these edge cases never even come up. So I'll leave you with this one question to ask yourself next time you're coding. It's pretty easy to write code that a computer can understand. The real challenge,
The mark of a true professional is to write code that a human can understand. So, which are you aiming for? Clever or clear?